The Roaring Knight in Deltarune is one of the most intriguing and mysterious characters, and we have little to no information about them. But through the little bits of info Tricky Tony dropped on us through the chapters, we as the community have so much liberty to theorize about who and what they are. The theory I will propose to you today is called the Determined Knight theory. But first, we need to establish what a dark world is and what dictates its nature. A dark world is what happens when a location is overflowed with darkness through the creation of a dark fountain. And when in a dark world, any ordinary object can gain higher consciousness. This line said by Rousey in Chapter 2 reveals a few very crucial facts about dark worlds. The dark fountain that creates the world has a will, and darkeners who don't reflect this will turn to stone. Now this begs the question, what is the will of a dark fountain, and what creates it? To answer that question, we must look at chapters 3 and 4. After the Fun Gang escaped from Tenna's Doom Board in chapter 3, a lot of the Darkeners in the Green Room turned to stone, which is revealed to us when talking to the ones that haven't yet, is due to them not originally being from Chris's home, but rather objects that have been taken from other places in Hometown by Chris. Alright, so we know that location is an aspect of what the will of a fountain is, but the actual reason we have been looking at dark fountains is because of determination. From Queen's lines at the end of chapter 2, it is already a fact that determination is what forms a dark fountain. But chapter 4 also revealed to us that the magnitude of determination is also a key factor for the fountain's will. In chapter 4, we see someone other than Chris or the Knight making a dark fountain, Susie, who's a monster. However, instead of the dark world being exactly the same as the one the Knight made, the new Dark World, which was made in the exact same location, shows wafers from the last Dark World as stone. Secondly, if we also take into account the fact that the Dark World Susie made has a completely different color scheme from all the other Dark Worlds, and that Chris's Dark Worlds have an identical color scheme to the ones that the Knight makes, then we only need to find a value of something that Chris and the Knight share, while Susie doesn't. The most obvious difference between Chris and Susie is that Chris is a human, while Susie is a monster. Now, does this mean that the Knight is a human? Not necessarily. Because one of the main aspects that differentiate humans and monsters is determination. We know from the True Lab in Undertale that monsters' physical forms can't handle determination like humans can, and that human souls are more powerful than all monsters combined. This fact leads to the conclusion that the will of a dark fountain relies both on the location of it and the determination of the person who created it. Thus, it is clear that the Roaring Knight has the same amount of determination as a human. This can also be shown from the properties of determination, which are conveniently given to us in the True Lab in Undertale with Entry 5. Determination denies death. So what do we see the Knight doing in Chapter 4 that Susie could not? They revived Gerson from the dead. Determination also gives the power to change fate, which is exactly what happens when it is revealed to us in Chapter 5, against Rousey's knowledge, that the Knight made a fountain before the first one in Chapter 1. Now, I think I should mention the elephant in the room. Maybe the factor isn't the determination of the fountain's creator, but rather their intentions or will, though from my research I haven't found anything that could lead to such a conclusion. In fact, the whole of the fake Gerson in Susie's Dark World could mean the exact opposite, since it acted completely different from what Susie wanted. But we have no way of knowing until Toby confirms it himself. Finally, I should probably say what I think this means for the lore of Deltarune as a whole. And my idea is that the Knight, no matter their identity, wanted to change the fate of the world, and so they decided to hunt a human. With a human, they killed them and absorbed their soul, getting a massive amount of DT and the ability to change fate. Or the Knight is just a human. Either works, but personally I believe that the first option is more in tune with the game's narrative, and it would be a nice callback to Undertale. Nevertheless, I hope my argument is not too outlandish, though compared to other Deltarune theories, I don't think this one is too out of the ordinary, and I hope you enjoyed my ramblings.